Hello, I'm Josh and welcome back to another 3D revolution. In this short video I'm going to be taking you through the steps of how to use multiple processes in Simplify3D. One of the really nice features of Simplify3D is it allows you to run different settings for different parts of your print. This means that you could have multiple different models on your print bed at the same time, each with their own settings, or you could have different settings within a model itself, depending on the area of the model and what properties you want that area to have. So let's take a look at the different types of multiple processes that you can use. One of the really cool things that you can do with multiple processes in Simplify3D is to print multiple models at the same time, each with their own settings. If I import a couple of models now, I'll go for this and that one there, we'll take a look at them. So let me move these out so we can see them a bit better. On the right there you can see we've got Batman Owl, and on the left here we have a ping pong ball that you print in place. I've actually used that before and I was impressed how long it lasted. I got through a few games. Now the one on the left here, the ping pong ball, I'm going to want to print in 100% infill to keep it nice and strong, and I want it to be high resolution, so I'm going to print that at 1 micron. The Batman Owl though, I don't want it to take ages to print, so I'm going to print it at a lot lower infill, and I'm also going to print it at 2 micron heights. So to do this, we're going to have to add an additional process. If I select this process that we've already got, you'll see it selects both models at the same time. That's because they're both within it. If I now create another process, you can see it's appeared there, and go to select models, you'll see it's got both of them highlighted here. If I unhighlight one model and click OK, and then go into the other process, click edit process settings and go select models again, if I unselect the ball on this one and click OK, you'll now see that if I select the first one, it just highlights the bat. If I select just the second process, it just selects the ball. And this shows that the processes are only applying to those individual models. So now if I go and edit the settings just for the bat, I can change this to, let's go for 20% infill. And I'm going to select the 2 micron layer height that I wanted for that. And I'm actually going to speed it up a bit because I don't want it to take too long and I'm not that fussed about the quality on that one, so let's just hit OK. On the ping pong ball, I want that to be nice and tough, and I kind of want it to look nice. It's quite a fine detail anyway, so we want to be quite a small layer resolution. Let's keep that at 1, and let's slow it down a bit so it gives it time to cool on each of those thinner areas. I'm also going to increase the infill up to 100%, and now I can click OK. We're now ready to click Prepare to Print. When I do this, you'll notice this box appears. This is asking which of the processes I actually want to print. If you just select the one, it's only going to select and recognize that one print. We want to select all, so it recognizes them both in the next stage. Down here, we've got the choice of either continuous printing, layer by layer, which will print both models at the same time, layer by layer. The other option is sequential printing, and this will print one entire object and then move back to the bottom and start again. This can cause major problems, and you always want continuous printing. Let's click OK. Once that's complete, we can see both models have come out on the build plate together. All good so far, so now let's take a look and see if our settings have come out how we want them. If I scroll down through the layers, you'll see that our Batman Owl has come out with the infill that I've selected. As I keep on going down, the ping pong ball, well, this one doesn't really show it as well as it could have. That is technically 100%, but because of the size of the parts, it's actually pretty hollow anyway. It's pretty much just the outer walls. A better example is if I look down at the lower layers here on a more front-on view, we can look at the layer heights. The ping pong ball on the left there has a 0.1 micron layer height, and the owl has a 0.2 micron layer height. And that is using multiple processes for multiple models. Another really cool way that you can use multiple processes in Simplify3D is when you're printing just one model. You can actually set different settings for different areas of the same model. You could use this, for example, to have a 100% infill on a base, so it's nice and heavy and bottom weighted, but have the rest at a much lower infill to save time and materials whilst printing. You could also use this for strengthening certain areas of a print that you know are going to receive more strain, or changing the resolution where it matters. So let's add a new process, and click OK. So let's import a model so we can play with it, and this is probably something that you guys will recognize. Now what I'll probably do with this is have one setting to go up to the neck and another one just for the head, and this will allow us to clearly see the differences between the different settings that we've applied. Now if we come up to Tools and then come down to Variable Settings Wizard, you'll now see this plane appears around the model. You can drag this up and down, and this is the point at which in the print it's going to change the settings that are being applied. So if I slide this to just about where the neck comes into play and I click Add Location, you'll then see the exact layer height appears there, and it's from this point the printer is going to change what settings are applied. Let's click Split Process. You'll now notice another process has been selected down the bottom. This is a copy of the original one, but applied to a different part of the body. So the first one is applied from the bottom up to the first marker. I'm going to leave that at 100% infill and at 1 layer height. I'll select the second process, which is just for the head. I'm going to bring this down to 16% and let's go for a layer height of 2. Now this basically means that when it hits that marker point that I've set, it's going to change to process 2. So let's process. You again have to select both processes here and layer by layer continuous printing for this to print the entire model. If we click OK and let that process, we'll see how this comes out. Okay, and now he's finished processing, so all looks good from here. If we zoom in closer, you may start to notice the difference in settings. It actually is quite clear on this one, and you can see the exact point where it goes from 0.1mm layer height to 0.2mm layer height on the head there. If I start scrolling down, you'll see that he starts out printing in 100% infill, and as I scroll up, as it reaches the neck, we then go into the 16% infill that I selected. And that's how you select multiple processes for the same model. Now one other thing I'd quite like to quickly show you here is if we go back, if we then deleted both our processes and deleted our model, we're starting from scratch. If you've done one of these multiple process models and you start your next print, what you may find is if you just go ahead and keep your process settings, it comes out like this, and it's only printing part of your model. Now the reason for this is Simplify3D remembers your previous settings. If you go to Advanced, what you'll find is that either the Start Printing at Height or the Stop Printing at Height boxes are ticked. Untick them and click OK, and now you should be able to prepare to print and it will conclude the entire model. It's just worth noting, as if you've just started experimenting with multiple processes yourself, you may experience these and it can be very frustrating if you don't know what's going on. Now if you have a dual or even a quad extruder printer, you can use multiple processes to print multiple materials, either in one or multiple models. You could use this for printing a solid infill with a rubberized exterior of a ball, or you could have a rubberized hinge, or you might want to print one model in one filament and another in a different one. But for this example, I'm going to show you what might be the most common use of dual extrusion, and that's to have a different material for your support structure. So if we import a model, and here we've got a familiar character Rick. I'll scale him down so he fits in my print there. Okay, so you can see here that this model will require some support material. I'm going to just use the general automatic support material for this because this isn't a support material tutorial, although keep an eye out, I am going to be doing a specialist one soon. If we edit the process setting, if you have an auto configure set up for your printer, make sure both extruders are selected. Otherwise, in the list on the left, make sure both or all of your extruders are selected, and also that the tool head for that extruder is set up correctly. That will depend on your actual printer's setup. If not, you can add an extruder at the bottom of that column. Now in Layer, This setting here is specifically referring to your exterior walls, your perimeter walls. I've set that to the left extruder, which in my current setup is PLA. Under additions, I'm going to keep skirt, brim and rafts turned on, but I'm going to set them all to come from the right extruder, which is my support material. Again, if I go to the infill, you'll notice that I can select a different filament again. I'm going to stick with the left, so both my infill and my perimeters are PLA, but my support material I'm again going to go to the right hand side, and that should allow me to easily remove it later on. Under temperatures, you're going to want to make sure that you've got the correct temperature set for each of your individual materials, as well as your print bed. Now your print bed is going to depend on whether you're using your support material or your main material for the base of the print, whether you're using raft or not, so take that into consideration. Your cooling and everything else can also be set as normal. Your speeds can be changed for the different materials depending on what you've applied them to in this setting here. Now if I click prepare to print, you may find it doesn't look exactly as expected. Now what's happened here is Simplify3D has generated an ooze shield. It automatically applies this to anything that you're using with multiple materials, and this is basically a wall that it builds up to wipe the nozzle on as it goes and prevent stringing and deterioration of the quality of the print. Now if I scroll down, you can see the different materials appearing. You've got tool 0 and tool 1. Tool 0, represented by the dark blue, is my support material, and tool 1, which is my PLA, represented by the green. You may also notice the different colours of the ooze shield itself. You can see it's more of a bluey green, and that's because it is quite that. It is a mix of the two materials, where it's wiping the nozzle in between each layer to make sure that nothing from the previous extrusion is dragged into the other material. Thanks for watching, and remember, hit subscribe for more news, tips and live streams on everything 3D and tech.